The darkness of space suddenly blazed with light as massive ships appeared from nowhere. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Titan's shield, watching his screens fill with alien vessels. Each ship was bigger than a city and black as night, with strange symbols glowing along their hulls. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez turned from her station with fear in her eyes. "Sir, we have over 3,000 contacts," she said. "They just came out of hyperspace at the edge of our solar system." Jake nodded and kept his face calm even though his heart was racing. He had trained for this moment his whole life, but seeing it happen was different. The alien fleet moved in. Perfect formation like a school of deadly fish swimming through the void. Their ships had smooth curves and sharp edges that looked both beautiful and terrifying. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let's see what they want." The main screen flickered and showed an alien face that made everyone on the bridge step back. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern and skin that looked like gray stone. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "I am War Marshal Kethver of the Zorathi Empire," it said. "Your primitive species has 72 hours to surrender completely, or we will destroy every living thing on your world. You cannot fight us. We have conquered 17 star systems and killed billions. Your weapons are toys compared to our power." The transmission ended and the bridge fell silent. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same mix of fear and anger on every face. Amy was already working her controls trying to get a message to Earth. The communication officer's hands shook as she typed on. Earth President Helen Carter was pulled from her sleep by urgent calls. She rushed to the Situation Room where her advisors were already gathering. General Rick Hayes was studying tactical reports while Secretary of State Lisa Thompson reviewed diplomatic protocols. Neither looked hopeful. "How bad is it?" Helen asked, as she took her seat at the head of the table. "Bad," Rick replied. "Our long-range sensors show they have enough firepower to turn Earth into glass. Their smallest ships are more powerful than our entire space fleet combined." Lisa leaned forward. "We should try to negotiate. Maybe we can find some common ground or offer them something they want besides conquest." Rick shook his head. "The historical data from other species shows the Zorathi don't negotiate. They conquer or they destroy. There's no middle ground with them." On the moon, Dr. Kevin Park was having the same conversation with his research team. The Luna facility had the best sensors in human space, and they were getting detailed scans of the alien ships. What Kevin saw made him frown. The ships were powerful, but they followed predictable patterns. Their energy signatures showed weaknesses that nobody else had noticed yet. "Run the analysis again," Kevin told his assistant. "Focus on the shield frequencies and power distribution patterns." Back on Titan's shield, Jake was coordinating with defense stations throughout the solar system. The humans had built a network of bases and platforms over the past 50 years, but everyone knew it wasn't enough to stop a full invasion. The aliens had hyperspace technology and energy weapons that could punch through any armor humans could build. War Marshal Kethver stood on his flagship reviewing intelligence reports about the humans. His tactical officers had studied every broadcast and transmission from Earth for months. The reports showed a species that still used chemical rockets and primitive nuclear weapons. Their technology was at least 200 years behind Zorathi standards. "They fight among themselves constantly," reported his intelligence chief. "Their planet is divided into hundreds of competing nations. They have no unified military command, and their weapons are barely adequate for planetary warfare." Kethver nodded with satisfaction. This would be easier than the last 3 conquests. The humans would surrender quickly once they realized how outmatched they were. Most species begged for mercy when faced with Zorathi power. The few that tried to fight were crushed within hours. The War Marshal looked at the small blue planet in the distance. It looked peaceful and defenseless, hanging in the void. Soon it would be another trophy in the Empire's collection. The humans would serve as slaves or they would die. Either way, the Zorathi Empire would grow stronger, but deep in hidden facilities across the solar system, other humans were working frantically. Captain Steve Collins was preparing his mining fleet for a special mission, while Commander Nancy Davis activated long-dormant systems on Mars. Dr. Park sent encrypted messages to research stations throughout human space. The countdown had begun, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what they were really capable of when pushed too far. The 72-hour deadline approached like a storm. President Helen Carter stood before the cameras in the White House press room with the weight of humanity on her shoulders. Behind her, the flags of Earth's nations hung side by side for what might be the last time. She looked directly into the lens and spoke with a steady voice. "Citizens of Earth and beyond," she began, "the Zorathi Empire has demanded our surrender. They believe we are weak and primitive. They think we will bow down, like the other species they have conquered. They are wrong. Humanity chooses to fight. Across the galaxy, the message was broadcast on every frequency. The Zorathi fleet intercepted the transmission, and War Marshal Kethver laughed when he heard it. The humans were choosing death over slavery. It would make the conquest faster and easier. His officers began preparations for orbital bombardment, but the humans were also moving. Captain Steve Collins stood on the bridge of Mercury's Dream watching dozens of ships prepare for departure. To any observer, they looked like civilian vessels fleeing the coming battle. Mining ships, cargo haulers, and research vessels formed up in loose formations and headed toward the outer system. The Zorathi sensors tracked them and dismissed them as cowards running from the fight. Collins smiled grimly as he reviewed his reel. Orders. His ships weren't running anywhere. They were taking positions for the most important battle in human history. Each vessel carried modifications that had been installed in secret over the past 5 years. What looked like mining equipment was actually something far more deadly. On Mars, Commander Nancy Davis walked through corridors that hadn't seen sunlight in decades. The Red Planet's military installations were buried deep underground and hidden from orbital observation. For 20 years, humans had been building facilities that appeared abandoned on the surface while hiding massive weapons systems below. Nancy's fingers flew over control panels as she brought dormant systems back to life. "Status report," she called to her team. "Particle accelerators coming online," reported her weapons officer. "Magnetic field generators at full power. Old defensive. Systems ready for activation." Nancy nodded and opened a secure channel to Earth. "Control, this is Mars Base. We are ready to execute Operation Graveyard on your command." Back on Luna, Dr. Kevin Park was working frantically with his team. The analysis of Zorathi technology had revealed something incredible. The aliens were powerful, but they followed rigid patterns. Their shield systems were calibrated to deflect energy weapons, but they had a critical weakness. The right kind of kinetic impact at the correct frequency could penetrate their defenses completely. "Are you certain about this?" asked his chief engineer, Gary Mitchell. Kevin looked at the data one more time. "The math is solid. Their shields expect high-energy plasma bolts and particle beams. They're not designed to stop old-fashioned kinetic weapons if we hit them at the right angle and speed." Gary grinned and began entering new commands into the facility's computers. All across the solar system, hidden installations were receiving the same data. Weapons that had been disguised as communication satellites and research platforms began to unfold and reconfigure themselves. The trap was almost ready. The Zorathi fleet moved into attack formation and began their final approach to Earth. War Marshal Kethver expected token resistance from primitive human warships. His tactical displays showed a few dozen vessels moving to intercept his fleet. They were small and looked hastily assembled. The humans were about to learn why the Zorathi Empire ruled 17 star systems. "Begin the assault," Kethver ordered. "Target their military installations first. Leave the cities intact for now." Dead slaves served no purpose. The first Zorathi ships entered the inner solar system expecting easy victory. Their energy weapons began charging while their shields strengthened to maximum power. The human vessels ahead looked pathetic compared to Zorathi war machines. This would be over quickly, but Captain Collins was watching the alien formation from his position near the asteroid belt. His mining ships had spread out among the rocks and debris, following patterns that looked random but were actually carefully calculated. Each vessel was equipped with mass drivers that could accelerate chunks of asteroid to incredible speeds. "All ships, this is Collins," he broadcast on a secure channel. "Target acquisition complete. Firing solution locked. Remember, we only get one chance to surprise them, Lieutenant Sarah." Kim was coordinating the orbital defense grid from her station on Titan's shield. The satellites that had been orbiting Earth for decades suddenly came alive with new purpose. Solar panels folded back to reveal magnetic railguns while communication arrays transformed into targeting systems. Colonel Mike Peterson led the ground-based defense network from his command center deep beneath Colorado. Hidden missile silos across Earth opened their doors while laser platforms emerged from disguised buildings. The humans had spent 50 years preparing for this moment, and every system was designed to look harmless until it was needed. Dr. Rachel Stone watched her modified particle accelerators track the approaching alien ships. The weapons were built inside hollowed-out asteroids and powered by fusion reactors that had been disguised as mining equipment. To the Zorathi, they looked like abandoned industrial facilities, but they were actually the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. War-Marshal Kethver studied his tactical display as his fleet closed distance with the human defenders. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The primitive human ships were maintaining a defensive position around their homeworld while civilian vessels fled toward the outer planets. It was exactly what Zorathi battle doctrine predicted. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the asteroid belt and the outer planets." "Ignore them," Kethver replied. "Focus on the military targets. These humans are using their mining equipment to mask their retreat. Let them run. We can hunt them down later," but the humans weren't running, and this wasn't a retreat. As the Zorathi fleet entered optimum range, every hidden weapon in the solar system prepared to fire. The greatest ambush in galactic history was about to begin. The first sign that something was wrong came from the asteroid belt. Captain Steve Collins watched his tactical display as the Zorathi fleet entered the kill zone. The aliens were arranged in their traditional wedge formation, with the largest ships at the front and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. "All mining vessels, this is Collins," he broadcast. "Execute Operation Sledgehammer now." Across the belt, dozens of ships that looked like civilian miners suddenly revealed their true purpose. Mass drivers that had been disguised as ore processors began hurling chunks of asteroid at incredible speeds. The projectiles were nothing special, just rocks and metal, but they were moving at significant fractions of light speed. When they hit the Zorathi shields, the results were devastating. War Marshal Kethver felt his flagship shake as the first impacts struck home. His tactical officer was shouting reports, but the words made no sense. The human mining equipment was attacking his fleet with kinetic weapons that somehow penetrated their energy shields. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Damage report," Kethver demanded. "Multiple hull breaches on the outer perimeter ships," his officer replied. "The Dominator and the Starcrusher have lost main power." "How are they getting through our shields on Luna, Doctor?" Kevin Park was watching the battle through his sensors with grim satisfaction. The Zorathi had made the same mistake as every other advanced species. They had developed energy weapons and energy defenses, but forgotten about simple kinetic force. A rock traveling fast enough could punch through any energy barrier if you hit it at the right angle. The second wave of the attack came from the orbital platforms around Earth. Lieutenant Sarah Kim coordinated the defense grid as magnetic rail. Guns began firing tungsten rods at the approaching fleet. The projectiles were simple metal bars, but they were accelerated to enormous velocities by Earth's most powerful electromagnets. "Direct hits on multiple targets," Kim reported to Admiral Morrison. "Their shields are failing to stop our kinetic weapons." Colonel Mike Peterson activated the third phase from his command center. Satellites that the Zorathi had dismissed as communication relays suddenly unfolded into massive weapon platforms. Solar collectors that had been gathering energy for decades focused their stored power into coherent beams of concentrated starlight. The resulting lasers were more powerful than anything the aliens had ever encountered, The Zorathi formation began to collapse as ships exploded or spun out of control. War Marshal Cuthbert tried to issue orders, but his communications were being jammed by human electronic warfare systems. The species he had dismissed as primitive was fighting with coordination and tactics that matched the best Zorathi military doctrine. But the real surprise was yet to come. Commander Nancy Davis smiled as she activated the Mars defense grid. The red planet had been transformed over the past 20 years into a massive weapons platform. Particle accelerators built into the planet's crust began firing streams of accelerated matter at the alien fleet. The weapons were powered by fusion. Reactors buried so deep they were invisible to orbital scans. Dr. Rachel Stone coordinated her asteroid-based weapons as they continued their devastating barrage. The modified particle accelerators were hidden inside, hollowed-out rocks and powered by reactors that looked like abandoned mining equipment. Each installation could punch holes through Zorathi armor like it was paper. "Target the command ships," Stone ordered. "Take out their leaders and the rest will panic." Engineer Gary Mitchell was operating the gravity wave generators from his station on Ceres. The weapons were humanity's most closely guarded secret, built using technology that most humans didn't even know existed. When activated, they created artificial gravitational anomalies that could tear apart anything caught in their field of effect. The Zorathi fleet found itself trapped in a crossfire from every direction. Ships that tried to retreat ran into kinetic barriers, while those that advanced faced concentrated laser fire. The humans had turned the entire inner solar system into a killing field, and the aliens were caught in the center of it. War Marshal Cuthbert watched his tactical display fill with red icons as ship after ship was destroyed or disabled. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. Their weapons were crude but effective, and their tactics were flawless. Every move his fleet made had been anticipated and countered. "Sir, we need to withdraw," his tactical officer urged. "We've lost over half our ships, and the humans have more weapons coming online." Cuthbert stared at the display in disbelief. The intelligence reports had been completely wrong. The humans weren't primitive at all. They had been hiding their true capabilities and preparing for this battle for years. Every piece of equipment the Zorathi had dismissed as civilian infrastructure was actually a weapon in disguise. Captain Collins continued his assault from the asteroid belt as his mining ships revealed more hidden weapons. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a Zorathi cruiser, and there were dozens of them scattered throughout the belt. The aliens had nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. The human coordination was perfect. Every weapon fired at precisely the right moment to maximize damage while minimizing the chance of friendly fire. Admiral Morrison directed the battle from Titan's shield like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. The Zorathi were learning why humanity had survived on a planet full of predators for millions of years. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez intercepted alien communications as the Zorathi tried desperately to reorganize their forces. The translations were filled with panic and confusion. The aliens couldn't understand how a primitive species had developed such advanced weapons and tactics, but the humans weren't finished yet. Captain Linda Torres was approaching in the experimental vessel New Horizon, equipped with technology that would make the Zorathi wish they had never heard of Earth. The real demonstration of human ingenuity was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn why their empire was doomed. War Marshal Cuthbert tried to rally his remaining forces, but the battle had turned into a nightmare. His fleet was scattered across the inner solar system, with ships burning and dying in the vacuum. The humans had revealed weapons and tactics that defied everything the Zorathi knew about warfare. But the worst was yet to come. Captain Linda Torres brought her ship New Horizon out of stealth mode near Jupiter's largest moon. The vessel looked different from other human ships, with smooth curves and strange projections along its hull. Dr. Chris Anderson had spent 5 years designing the artificial intelligence that controlled the ship's weapons, and the AI was eager to prove itself against alien targets. "New Horizon to Fleet Command," Torres broadcast. "Beginning adaptive combat protocols now." The ship's AI began analyzing Zorathi tactics and weapons in real time. Every energy signature and movement pattern was recorded and processed through combat. Algorithms that had been trained on decades of warfare data. Within minutes, the AI understood how the aliens fought and began developing counters for every strategy. The New Horizon opened fire with weapons that seemed to anticipate where the Zorathi ships would move. Energy beams struck targets before they could change course, while kinetic projectiles hit weak points that the AI had identified through sensor analysis. The alien ships found themselves fighting an opponent that learned from every exchange and adapted faster than they could respond. Commander Nancy Davis watched from Mars as her underground facilities continued their bombardment. The particle accelerators built into the planet's crust were firing streams of accelerated matter at near light speed. Each shot could punch through multiple Zorathi ships if they lined up correctly, and Nancy was making sure they did. Targeting. Solutions updated, reported her weapons officer. We have clear shots at their remaining command vessels. Nancy smiled coldly. Fire at will. Show them what human engineering can accomplish. The Mars weapons grid unleashed a coordinated barrage that lit up the darkness between worlds. Streams of accelerated particles crossed millions of kilometers in seconds to strike the heart of the Zorathi formation. Command ships that had survived the earlier attacks simply vanished in flares of released energy as their hulls were torn apart at the molecular level. Engineer Patricia Young was coordinating the solar collection arrays near Mercury. The installations had been built over 15 years to provide clean energy for Earth cities, but they had a secondary purpose that was now revealed. Instead of sending power to Earth, the arrays focused their collected solar radiation into coherent beams that could slice through alien armor like a hot knife through butter. Solar weapons at full power, Patricia reported. Ready to engage remaining targets, the concentrated starlight reached across space to find Zorathi ships trying to retreat toward the outer planets. The beams were invisible in vacuum, but their effects were immediate and devastating. Alien vessels caught in the solar fire simply melted as their armor failed and their internal systems were vaporized by the incredible heat. Captain Steve Collins continued his attack from the asteroid belt, but now his mining ships had support from hidden installations throughout the region. Automated weapons platforms disguised as abandoned equipment came online to join the assault. The entire belt had been turned into a maze of death where Zorathi ships found enemies behind every asteroid. Dr. Kevin Park activated the final phase of the lunar weapons grid. Gravity wave generators buried beneath the moon's surface created artificial gravitational anomalies that pulled Zorathi ships out of formation and into collision courses with each other. The aliens tried to compensate, but their navigation systems couldn't handle the constantly shifting gravitational fields. War Marshal Kethfer watched his fleet die around him as human weapons continued their relentless assault. The species he had dismissed as primitive was demonstrating technology that surpassed anything in the Zorathi arsenal. Worse yet, they were using it with tactical brilliance that suggested decades of preparation. How could our intelligence have been so wrong? He demanded of his surviving officers. His communications chief looked up from her station with terror in her 4 eyes. Sir, I'm intercepting human transmissions. They've been planning this for over 50 years. Every piece of equipment we observed was designed to look primitive while hiding advanced weapon systems. The revelation hit Kethfer like a physical blow. The humans had been deliberately deceiving every observer and intelligence gathering mission. They had crafted false broadcasts and staged primitive technology demonstrations while secretly building the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. Lieutenant Sarah Kim coordinated the orbital defense platforms as they continued their devastating fire. The rail guns and particle beams were supplemented by weapons that the Zorathi had never encountered before. Magnetic containment fields captured and redirected alien energy weapons back at their sources, while quantum disruption beams tore apart the molecular bonds holding enemy ships together. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the tactical display from Titan's shield as the Zorathi fleet continued to shrink. What had started as an invasion force of 3,000 ships was now reduced to scattered survivors trying desperately to escape the killing field that humanity had prepared. Sir, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez reported, "We're intercepting alien communications. They're calling for immediate withdrawal to hyperspace." Denied, Morrison replied coldly. "Signal all units to prevent any Zorethi ship from reaching jump distance." No survivors, no witnesses. The human fleet moved to cut off every escape route as Captain Torres and her AI-guided ship demonstrated the ultimate evolution of human warfare. The New Horizon was learning and adapting so quickly that it began predicting Zorethi moves before the aliens made them. Every shot found its target, while every defensive maneuver anticipated the enemy response. Dr. Rachel Stone's asteroid weapons continued their methodical destruction of anything with a Zorethi energy signature. The hidden installations had enough ammunition and power to continue firing for days, and Stone intended to use every round. The aliens had made the mistake of threatening Earth, and now they would pay the ultimate price for their arrogance, the graveyard of twisted metal and crystallized atmosphere that had once been the mighty Zorethi fleet spread across the inner solar system. But the humans weren't finished yet, and War Marshal Kethver was about to learn that his empire's days of conquest were over forever. The remnants of the once mighty Zorethi fleet were scattered like leaves in a storm. War Marshal Kethver found himself commanding fewer than 200 ships from the 3,000 that had entered the solar system. His flagship was damaged and running on emergency power while human weapons continued their relentless assault from every direction. "Signal the retreat," he ordered his communications officer. "All remaining ships fall back to hyperspace jump distance immediately." But Captain Steve Collins and his fleet had anticipated this move. The mining ships that had been positioned throughout the asteroid belt now formed a blockade around the outer system. Every escape route was covered by human weapons, while automated defense platforms prevented any ship from reaching the minimum safe distance for hyperspace activation. Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the final phase of the battle from Titan's shield. His tactical display showed human forces closing in from all sides like a pack of wolves surrounding wounded prey. The aliens had nowhere to run and no chance of survival, but Morrison wanted to make sure the lesson was clear. "All units, this is Fleet Command," he broadcast. "Execute total elimination protocol. I want every Zorethi ship destroyed and every crew member dead. The galaxy needs to understand what happens when Earth is threatened." President Helen Carter watched the battle from the Situation Room in Washington. The woman who had refused to surrender to alien demands now gave the order that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Her voice was calm, but her words carried the weight of species-wide determination. "No quarter will be given," she announced to her cabinet. "No mercy will be shown. Let every species in the galaxy know that humanity protects its own." The human fleet moved in for the kill with mechanical precision. Captain Linda Torres and the New Horizon led hunting parties that tracked down fleeing Zorethi vessels one by one. The ship's AI had learned so much about alien tactics that it could predict their moves before they made them. Every attempt at evasion was anticipated and countered. Commander Nancy Davis activated the Mars planetary defense grid for the final bombardment. The particle accelerators built into the red planet's crust had enough power to continue firing for hours. Each shot that connected with a Zorethi ship resulted in complete destruction as the aliens' advanced armor proved useless against humanity's kinetic weapons. Dr. Kevin Park watched from Luna as his gravity wave generators tore apart the remaining alien formation. Ships that tried to group together for mutual defense found themselves pulled into collision courses by artificial gravitational fields. The Zorethi technology that had conquered 17 star systems was helpless against humanity's mastery of fundamental forces. War Marshal Kethver made one last desperate attempt to contact Earth directly. His 4 eyes showed the terror of a being who had finally realized the magnitude of his mistake. When his transmission reached President Carter, she listened to his words with cold satisfaction. "Please," the alien commander begged. "We surrender. Completely. Spare my remaining ships, and we will withdraw from your space forever." The Zorathi Empire will never trouble humanity again. Carter looked at her advisors before responding. General Rick Hayes nodded grimly while Secretary Lisa Thompson remained silent. The decision had already been made, and there would be no negotiation with species that threatened human extinction. War Marshal Kethver, Carter replied. You came here to conquer or destroy us. You gave us 72 hours to surrender or die. Now I give you the same choice. Surrender your ships and prepare to be boarded or be destroyed where you stand. The aliens' response was exactly what Carter expected. The Zorathi would rather die fighting than face the humiliation of capture. Their warrior culture made surrender impossible even when faced with certain death. It was a choice that would doom them all. Engineer Patricia Young focused the Mercury solar arrays on the largest remaining Zorathi ships. The concentrated starlight melted through their armor like paper, while their crews were vaporized before they could even scream. The arrays had enough stored solar energy to continue the bombardment for days. Lieutenant Sarah Kim coordinated the final assault from the orbital platforms around Earth. Railguns fired tungsten rods at incredible velocities, while particle beams stripped away alien armor one layer at a time. The weapons that had defended humanity for decades now served as instruments of total destruction. Dr. Rachel Stone's asteroid installations continued their methodical elimination of anything with a Zorathi energy signature. The hidden weapons had been designed to fight a defensive war, but they were proving equally effective at offensive operations. Each installation had enough ammunition to destroy dozens of enemy ships. Captain Torres watched her tactical display as the New Horizons AI achieved something unprecedented in galactic warfare. The artificial intelligence had learned enough about Zorathi technology to hack into their computer systems remotely. Enemy ships found their own weapons turning against them as human. Electronic warfare capabilities exceeded anything the aliens had imagined possible. The solar system that had seemed so peaceful just days before was now filled with the wreckage of the mightiest fleet in Zorathi history. Twisted metal and crystallized atmosphere created a monument to the folly of underestimating humanity. But the lesson was not yet complete. War Marshal Kethver's final transmission was broadcast on all frequencies as his flagship broke apart under concentrated human fire. His last words would become legend throughout the galaxy as other species learned what had happened to the Zorathi invasion force. "Beware the humans," he gasped as his ship died around him. "They are not what they seem. They are death itself wearing the mask of civilization. Tell the galaxy that the Zorathi Empire dies here as a warning to all who would threaten Earth." The transmission ended in static as the last major Zorathi ship was destroyed. Smaller vessels continued to flee through the debris field, but they were hunted down one by human forces that showed no mercy. The species that had conquered 17 worlds was learning that some prey fought back, and when humans fought, they fought to win. The silence that followed the destruction of the Zorathi fleet was profound. For the first time in days, the weapons platforms throughout the solar system fell quiet as their sensors confirmed what everyone already knew. Not a single alien ship remained intact, and no Zorathi warrior had survived the battle. The graveyard that stretched from Mercury to the asteroid belt contained the remains of 3,000 vessels and their crews. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the Bridge of Titans, shield looking out at the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest threat. The twisted metal and crystallized atmosphere would remain in orbit for centuries as a permanent reminder of what happened when Earth was threatened. He turned to Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "What are you hearing out there?" Morrison asked. Rodriguez adjusted her headset and frowned. "Sir, the news is spreading faster than we expected. Species throughout the galaxy are talking about what happened here. Some are offering alliance, while others are quietly abandoning plans to investigate human space." President Helen Carter addressed the United Nations for the final time as leader of a single world government. The formation of the Earth Colonial Authority would unite humanity under one banner as they prepared to take their place among the stars. Her words were broadcast to every human settlement from Luna to the outer planets. Today we prove that humanity will not be conquered or destroyed by any force in the galaxy, she declared. But our victory here is just the beginning. We will explore the stars and we will defend any species that calls for aid against oppression. The galaxy will learn that humans stand with the innocent and fight against tyrants. Captain Steve Collins was already preparing for humanity's next phase of expansion. His mining fleet was being converted into the foundation of Earth's first colony ship construction facility. The salvaged Zorathi technology would be studied and adapted for human use while prisoners taken from damaged alien vessels provided intelligence about hyperspace travel. Dr. Kevin Park worked frantically to reverse engineer the alien hyperspace drives from the wreckage scattered throughout the system. The technology that had allowed the Zorathi to build their empire would soon carry human ships to distant stars. Earth would no longer be isolated in its corner of the galaxy. Commander Nancy Davis took command of the Mars colonial fleet as construction began on humanity's first interstellar warships. The Red Planet's industrial capacity was being expanded to support deep space exploration and military operations. The lessons learned from fighting the Zorathi would be applied to vessels designed to project human power across the galaxy. Reports began filtering in from the former Zorathi territories. As species that had been enslaved for generations rose up in rebellion, the weapons and tactics provided by human intelligence, NETWRKS, were proving devastatingly effective against their former masters. The Zorathi Empire was collapsing as 17 star systems declared their independence. Captain Linda Torres received new orders to lead the first human diplomatic mission to the Galactic Commerce Federation. Her ship New Horizon would carry Earth's representative to species that had previously dismissed humanity as primitive. The AI that had learned to fight Zorathi ships would now help negotiate humanity's place in galactic civilization. Engineer Patricia Young was appointed to head the solar defense grid as humanity prepared for possible retaliation from other hostile species. The Mercury arrays were being expanded while new installations were planned for the outer planets. Earth would never again be vulnerable to surprise attack from space. War Marshal Kethfer's final warning had indeed spread throughout the galaxy as surviving Zorathi refugees told their story to anyone who would listen. Species that had considered invading human space quietly abandoned their plans while others began reaching out through diplomatic channels. The reputation that humanity had earned in a single battle would protect them for generations. Dr. Rachel Stone continued her work on advanced weapon systems as Earth prepared to defend its growing colonial empire. The asteroid installations that had destroyed the Zorathi fleet were being duplicated in other star systems, while new technologies promised even greater destructive power for future conflicts. Admiral Morrison took command of Earth's first deep space exploration fleet as humanity began its expansion into the galaxy. The ships under his command carried weapons that made the Zorathi arsenal look primitive, while their crews were trained in tactics that had proven superior to anything the aliens could field. President Carter's successor announced the completion of humanity's first hyperspace-capable warships just 6 months after the Zorathi defeat. The vessels carried names that honored the battle that had changed everything. The Jake Morrison and the Steve Collins led a fleet that would explore new worlds, while the Nancy Davis and the Linda Torres would ensure that human colonies were protected from any threat. The galaxy had learned a harsh lesson about underestimating the species from the small blue world in an unremarkable star system. Humanity's reputation for tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency in combat spread to every civilized world. Species that had never heard of Earth before now spoke the name with respect and fear. On the first anniversary of the battle, President Carter's successor stood before the memorial erected in Earth orbit. The monument incorporated metal from destroyed Zorathi ships and carried the names of every human who had participated in the defense of their world. The inscription was simple but profound. They came to conquer Earth and make it their prize. The memorial read, "Instead they found only death beneath our skies. Let all who threaten humanity remember the fate of those who underestimated our resolve. They wanted to conquer Earth, but it became their grave."